Glorious movie recap here. In today's recap, I'll be talking about a 2011 thriller action movie titled Limitless. Spoilers ahead. A loud bang on a metal door leads to a luxurious apartment with boxed up items. Two dead bodies are spotted during a brief tour of the high-end apartment complex. Eddie is standing on the edge of a balcony on the roof of the building. He steps off the ledge when he hears two gunshots in the next apartment above. His neighbor had to have heard the noise. Someone is yelling at Eddie's door to let them in. Eddie feels dissatisfied with himself. Is he jumping? Eddie is strolling down the street a little more than a year ago, looking radically different. He claims to be a writer. Midday drinking in a pub, he's lecturing two people about his novel, which no one thinks he's written. It's debatable if he believes it himself. He is afterwards seen writing. Attempting to write. Doubting. Until he eventually leaves his flat and returns to the bar. He goes a few weeks, if not months, without writing a single word. Lindy, his lover, eventually abandons him. Eddie believes it is unexpected, but she definitely does not. He prepares to propose to her, but she reminds him of his previous marriage to Melissa. That marriage did not go so well. Later, he's heading home, feeling horrible about himself in general, when he runs across Vernon, his ex-brother-in-law. Eddie is not looking forward to see him. Vernon persuades him to take a drink with him after some small talk in which they both lie to one another about what they're doing. They walk to a pub, and he tells him about Melissa. They then discuss Eddie's artistic challenges, and Vernon offers to assist him. He displays the medicine he is selling to him. It's some sort of magical designer medicine that apparently allows you to access your entire brain. Eddie does not believe it will benefit him. Vernon has to leave, so he hands him his business card and a free sample of the pricey medicine. Eddie is still wallowing in self-loathing on his way home when he decides to take the medication. He enters inside his building and is met by his landlord's wife Valerie, who despises him. His mind is racing as she screams at him, thinking about the ramifications of the medicine when it eventually strikes. Suddenly, he begins to notice things that he previously would not have. The small details all around him, the small details about her. He asks her what's wrong at one point, which throws her off guard. They begin chatting about her research, and he begins accessing memories in his head that he had no idea he possessed. As she begins to warm up to him, he offers to assist her with her essay. When he finishes the essay, he enters into his flat and notices how unclean and awful everything is. Thus he begins cleaning and repairing it, putting everything back in its place, until it resembles a real home. The medicine has completely cleared his head. So he does what he knows he will be doing with a clean mind. He writes. And he's actually doing it this time. Eddie awakens the next morning with the impression that the medication has totally worn off. The good news is that he still has the pages from his novel that he's written, so he goes to meet his publisher. Eddie invites her to view the incomplete work and offers to return the money if she is dissatisfied. When he comes home, he receives 3 more messages from her, all of which praise what she read. Eddie considers calling her again, but instead decides to visit Vernon. He unlocks the doors for him, looking as though he's been beaten, and allows him in grudgingly. Vernon understands why he's there and tells him that he'll give him more of the medicine once he runs some errands for him. Eddie leaves to retrieve his dry laundry and breakfast, but when he returns, the flat door is unlocked. Vernon sits on his sofa, and the apartment has been thoroughly trashed. Eddie approaches and discovers that he is no longer alive. He quickly contacts the police, and as he waits for them to arrive, he discovers that the persons who appeared to be hunting for the pills never discovered them. So he begins to search for himself. Eddie eventually locates the pills, as well as Vernon's black book and some cash. Suddenly, the cops arrive at the door. He is later questioned in a police station. Eddie and his narrative pique the detective's interest. Melissa dials the detective's number and requests to speak with Eddie. She tells him she does not want him at Vernon's funeral and that she will contact him after everything is finished. Eddie exits the police station, fearful of being followed. He comes home, counts the money, and takes one pill, which starts a montage of him entirely rediscovering himself. First, he gets a new haircut and outfit. He completes his work and sends it to his publisher. He masters the piano in 3 days and quickly learns to speak other languages, which he then utilizes to pick up ladies. He can suddenly use math to win in poker. He knows exactly what medications his cancer-stricken aunt need. He can conduct business with Wall Street types while also stunning everyone with his humor. He even receives a job offer from one of them. Eddie meets new pals, wealthy ones with private planes and beachfront mansions with whom he holidays. But he becomes reckless and craves more and more dopamine thrills. He eventually realizes that what he needs to accomplish is not writing. We witness him returning to his flat, checking over trade data and taking the medicine. He needs money to do what he wants, and investing in trades isn't going to cut it. Eddie searches for a loan shark in a cafe. He persuades him to hand up $100,000 to him. They meet in a park for the drop, and the loan shark warns him about what would happen if he does not repay the money. Later, he accepts the job offer and promptly discovers out how to quadruple his money invested. Eddie is spotted by key figures in the finance world and is invited to meet with one of them. Over dinner, he tells Lindy about it and amazes her by ordering in Italian. He apologizes to her and attempts to woo her back. They reconcile and begin seeing one another again. As time passes and he grows increasingly successful, he begins to suspect that he is being watched. He begins to feel uncomfortable one night while at his apartment with Lindy. The next day, he and his employer had lunch with Carl Van Loon. Eddie tries to impress the man with his spectacular information processing talents. He receives a lift home from him, and in the car, Van Loon delivers him some documents and instructs him to read them. When they get to his house, Eddie evaluates what he's read. The man is impressed and agrees to meet with him again. Eddie is too enthusiastic to go home, so he goes for a walk, planning his future and fantasizing about becoming president someday. Suddenly, he begins to feel funny again, as if time had begun to flow in a new direction. So he walks and walks till he enters a pub, completely clueless of how he got there. Then he's at a party with one female and next in a hotel with another. He believes he is being followed. Later, he initiates a fight on the subway, realizing he's learned to fight through watching kung fu movies and boxing on TV. He sprints across the city until he finds himself on top of a bridge, where he comes to a halt, unable to recollect the previous 18 hours of his life. Eddie feels terrible the next morning. He decides against taking another pill and attempts to read the material supplied to him by Van Loon, but they appear incomprehensible. Eddie arrives at the conference sloppy and unprepared. Van Loon continues to probe him, expecting high-level answers, however all Eddie can focus on is the TV, where the news reports that the woman he was in the hotel with has died. He abruptly exits the gathering. The phone rings when he arrives home. Melissa here. He invites her to join him later that day. Eddie recalls Vernon's black book and begins naming names from the list. Everyone on the list is either deceased or gravely ill. The last number he dials belongs to the man who followed him and is seated next to him on the bench. Eddie spots him and flees as the guy pursues him. He ultimately gets rid of him by entering a taxi. He talks with Melissa, who informs him that she was also on the drug and barely survived when she stopped taking it. She discovers he's been consuming it as well and advises him to taper down gradually since it may be fatal. Eddie's condition worsens as he returns home, where the loan shark awaits him. The man takes his final medication and swallows it. The man appears unaffected by the drug as Eddie takes the money he owes him from the bank. Eddie hands him his money and says he feels terrific, but there have been no visible increases in his IQ. Eddie then stumbles into Lindy's office. He confesses everything to her and requests that she bring him the pills he has concealed in her apartment. Lindy arrives and easily locates them, but on her way back to the office, she contacts Eddie and informs him that a guy is following her. Her taxi becomes delayed in traffic and the man is spotted approaching her. Eddie advises her to flee and the man follows her. Lindy goes into a park and asks two men for assistance. As she flees, the guy approaches and stabs both of them. Lindy runs away and contacts Eddie, telling him she's trapped and terrified. He instructs her to take one of the tablets, which she does. Lindy is suddenly affected by the substance. She goes through the identical experience Eddie underwent when he first took it and immediately begins running away, knowing just what to do. The man follows her every move until she knocks him out and flees. Lindy approaches Eddie and hands him a tablet. They both check into a motel. The next morning, Lindy is getting ready to depart and Eddie attempts to convince her that he will get back on the right path. She disagrees, though, after trying the medicine herself. He recognizes the benefits of the medicine, whilst she is afraid of it. Eddie promises her that he will get off the drugs someday, but she departs anyhow. Eddie approaches the loan shark who is waiting for him. Because the man wants more pills, he offers him a few to tide him over. Later, he employs two bodyguards to accompany him around and visits Van Loon. Eddie apologizes for missing the meeting, stating that he was sick, but he had already won the man over, so Van Loon grants him the position. He gets Van Loon back on his feet by brokering the largest merger in history. Instead of waiting for his stock of the drug to run out, he goes to a scientist and tells him he'll pay him $2 million if he can reproduce it in 6 months. The investigator pays Eddie a visit one day when he is eating lunch. He informs him that he has been recognized as the man who fled the hotel after the young woman was slain. So Eddie gets the best lawyer in town to help him out. Later, he's at a huge meeting for the merger with Van Loon when he discovers that one of the opposing guys, Atwood, is unwell. They will meet again the next day to sign the deal. Eddie approaches Van Loon after the meeting and threatens him not to make him his rival, stating that whatever makes him so effective at his profession is a gift, not something acquired through hard effort. Eddie returns to the hotel and discovers that his room has been wrecked. He purchases the opulent residence featured at the start of the film. Later, he encounters the loan shark again, who has radically changed. He orders Eddie to get him more pills, or he would inform his employer about his run-in with the cops. The next day, Van Loon and Eddie are waiting for Atwood to arrive and sign the merger agreements. When he fails to appear, his wife arrives at their offices to inform them that he is ill and will sign the contract as soon as he recovers. As the two of them lead her out, Eddie notices that the man who has been following him is getting inside the car with her. Her husband became ill as a result of the medicine. Eddie meets his lawyer at a police station and forms a queue. Fortunately, he is not selected. He abandons the loan shark and returns to the Van Loon office, where he is watching the news. They are covering the merger. His new employer is furious, but informs him that Atwood is dying. He is concerned about the merger. Eddie realizes he needs another medication and departs, but he can't find his stash. When a delivery arrives for him, he returns to the workplace. As Van Loon continues to press Eddie for answers, he opens the box and discovers the severed hands of his bodyguards inside. He dashes out the door and returns to his flat. There, he listens to the news, where Atwood's wife is making a statement regarding the merger, rather than lying about it. Her lawyer, who is also his lawyer, takes over the interview. When the doorbell rings, it's the loan shark urging him to open it. Eddie is then seen standing on the balcony's edge. He does not leap. He attempts to recall where he could have left another pill and scrambles to retrieve it. When he does, he drops it at the same instant the loan shark enters into his flat. Eddie is grabbed and seated by his thugs as he reveals that he uses the drug mixed in a liquid and administered into a vein. He orders his guys to uncover Eddie's stash while torturing him for information. Eddie stabs their boss as he falls over. Because the thugs are trying to open his safe, they can't hear what's going on. He murders him and then drinks his blood just like a vampire to get his drug fix. It works, so he understands how to defend himself against the thugs. He dispatches one of them, then the other. Elsewhere, Atwood passes away in the hospital. Eddie arrives and is seen seated close to the man who was stalking him. Later, the same individual assists him in finding more pills at the residence of the lawyer who stole Atwood's cash. Eddie has a book out and is running for Senate a year later. Van Loon is at his office, waiting. They have a brief conversation, but Van Loon informs him that he is aware of the drug. He informs him that he closed his lab that morning, and that if he accepts to work for him, he can supply him with the medicine in the future. They exit the workplace for lunch, but Eddie refuses to get in the car and work with Van Loon. Eddie informs him that he has learned how to modify the medicine, removing the negatives while retaining all of its great advantages. He sees it all and is unstoppable. Eddie declines to cooperate with Van Loon and sends him on his way. He heads to a restaurant where he joins Lindy. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and make sure to turn on notifications for more content. Thanks so much for watching.